Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So, where to start as always. So the year's finished, and good job everyone else who's also finished either another year at university or high school or work, I don't really know. So I'm currently back at home with my family. So I'm outside of Auckland now, and my parents and stuff aren't here right now, so I thought it was okay for me to film a video. So I guess for this video, it's just a sit down. I mean, most of my videos are sit downs anyway, but this one I just wanted to kind of give like a reflection and overview of the whole year, and I guess maybe some of the things that were happening in October and November, because I didn't really film anything at that time, and then my last video didn't cover it at all. Okay, so I wrote a few questions or points that I'd like to cover in this, and just so hopefully we can get a general idea of the whole year. So I don't actually think in any of my videos I've talked about the overall format of second year medicine at Auckland. I think what I want to do now is just have, I think, a graphic or something appear here so you can see how the course was broken down throughout the whole year. So basically what this graphic is trying to show you is, unlike other courses where you do usually 4 papers per semester, medicine is a bit different. So I think for starters, you have modules occurring at the same time, of course, but they might not last for the same amount of time. As you can see here, you have 2 modules that occur for 1 semester each. So in semester 1 you had Principles of Medicine, and then in second semester you had Clinical Pharmacology. And those are 2 sciencey kind of modules. Then the other modules we have, they don't take up a whole semester. They're usually maybe 6 or 7 weeks, and those ones just occur one after another. So those are the ones you see that are musculoskeletal, digestive system, respiratory, and so on. And so you can see the thing with respiratory is that we start the module at the end of semester 1, but we don't finish it until near the beginning of semester 2. And so for those ones, all of them had like a theory test involved with it, and maybe some other things as well, like labs or the PST. These other modules, so you have professional and clinical skills, and then Haura Māori. Both of these ones occur throughout the whole year, and they will have different assessments which aren't really tests. So for those ones, it's things more like the Māori Health Intensive Week or the First Patient Project and so on. So these are things we have lectures and specific projects and assignments that also occur throughout the year. And on top of that, we also have progress tests, and these are things that's not just exclusive to our year, but rather it's all the years of medical students. And that's something I think I've talked about, where everyone across all the years are doing the exact same test, but the test is set at a level that hopefully a 6th-year student could pass. So the idea is every time you sit the test, your average should hopefully be increasing, and hopefully by 6th year you're passing it. You only get compared with the rest of your cohort, and then so you can see as a class how everyone is doing. It's kind of interesting how it's like the end of the year, but now I'm doing a summary of what it was at the beginning. But anyway, that's fine. I feel this is just a really weird format. Anyway, so I think my first question I want to do is, what was my favourite module? So you just saw that the graphic where it had like the list of all of them. You've seen probably my previous videos where I've discussed them. And I think it's really hard to say which module is an exact favourite, which is weird if I made the question, but let's get some discussion going. I think every module has something enjoyable about it, and I mean, hopefully that is the outcome, right? Because this is what we're doing, I'm doing it for the majority of the year, so hopefully I am enjoying some of the modules. I felt like what always happened though was whenever I was in the middle of a module, I never really enjoyed it, but once I'd finished it and moved on to the next module, I was wishing I had the previous module again. And then I realized how nice it was because I don't know. I think, you just kind of miss what you what you just had or something. Cardio was probably one of the hardest modules in terms of content because it was probably one of our most content-heavy modules. And we had quite a few other assignments also occurring around the same time. But I really enjoyed it. We had a lot of, there was quite a few clinical ones, and so that was really cool to see how stuff we were learning was already related in a clinical context, and how we could apply our knowledge directly. I mean, ECGs, I still don't know if I understand them, yeah. ECGs are interesting. I mean, okay, one or two came up in our last progress test, and based off my results, apparently I got them right, so, I mean, I must have learned something. I think as well, cardio is by then we had gotten used to, I'd like to think I'd gotten used to the whole new format, and I was really just getting into the swing of things, and even though it was a lot of content, it was just just stick to the routine and you'll get there. Just like cardio, where it was things we could relate to, things, like heart rate, increasing your blood pressure and blah, blah, blah. I really liked the topics that you could find a direct relation to already. So for example, I really enjoyed digestive as well. I liked particularly the nutrition aspect of digestive. I think because it made me, everyone's eating food, so it's always that direct relation right there. That was always really cool for me, because you always hear certain things or, your friends discuss it. But when you actually hear the research behind certain topics or how they debunk all these myths or things that you just assume are truths, and you're like, wow, I did not know that. Here's a fun fact, guys. Everyone thinks spinach is high in iron, so we should eat lots of spinach, but the issue with spinach is even though it has lots of iron, that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be absorbing it all. Iron has two different forms, and so a lot of the iron in spinach is in the form that we can't absorb. So that's always an interesting fact. So don't eat just spinach, guys. Moving on from that though, I think my least favourite module was clinical pharmacology. So I haven't talked about clinical pharmacology that much, but essentially that one it's in the name. So things like drugs, how medication is prescribed, and then how those drugs get into the body, and things you've got to consider when you're looking at the dosage of these drugs and all that, and drug interactions. That was the sort of content within the module. And I think, the reason why I didn't like it was because it was the exact opposite of the modules I liked, where it was quite hard to, at this stage anyway, to apply the knowledge that we learned in clinical pharmacology. And like anyone, I understand why you have to learn it and how it's about those basics and the fundamentals, but like anything, sometimes it's really hard to see that clinical relevance right off the bat, and, I'm not prescribing drugs at this stage or giving people medicine, so even though I was learning it, it's really hard to retain, and I had no point of reference either. So we actually had to learn okay, by the way, I don't want to sound like I'm absolutely ranting here, but I felt like it was a frustration a lot of people experienced, and even though it was frustrating, that didn't stop me and everyone else from learning it. So just want to let that out there, that I understand the importance, but that doesn't mean that it can be hard to get through. So we had to learn quite a few drugs, and these drugs are really random names. Maybe I'll just put a few up on the screen. The issue was, every drug name, the end part usually kind of has some connection. For example, a lot of drugs that affect cardiac work end in olol. So, propranolol, metoprolol, beta prolol, those kind of things. So, I understand what that mindset is like. Okay, it's easy if you learn just like the ending, then you can, find out what all of the other drugs stand for. But the issue is we would just learn one or two of these things and then move on to another one and then another one. And so, like, the ending didn't really have a significance to us when we were just learning one of those examples. And learning the drug names, especially with no point of reference, was very difficult. And it really was just straight up memorizing. And I knew immediately that this would just go straight out of my mind after the test. And that isn't something that really encouraged me to learn it in the first place. And I think that's why I didn't enjoy it, because I knew the way I was learning to do well on the test was just straight up memorization, where in the other modules it was more like understanding the process and how it worked. And then, hopefully now if someone asks me a question, I could still give you some sort of answer. That was a very long rant on that, and I mean, I did give feedback, guys, don't worry. I think it is a hard sort of topic to teach, and, specifically at the basics, I understand that. It's just the content, it's the way it is. You can't really make a list of drug names very interesting. I guess another thing I want to cover is just specific things within the year that I also found quite difficult. So outside of those modules, as I mentioned earlier, we had professional and clinical skills. Something they really enforce to us when you want to be a good doctor is the importance of taking an accurate and in-depth history of the patient. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so, they really want us to get that down and start practicing it, even in second year. So one of the assessments you do is the communication skills experience. And so this is where they get you to interview an actor who's pretending to be a patient, and you're really just exploring their history. So you walk into the room and you tell them that you're a second year medical student and you're here to see them, either before or after their GP appointment, and you just kind of want to hear their story of why they came to see their GP. And so it's for 5 minutes and it is recorded. And the idea is afterwards you watch the recording and you talk about what you think you did well and things you need to improve on. I remember when they first told us about this assignment, I was absolutely dreading it. But in the end, it wasn't as bad as I thought. And, there was always room for improvement, but I think that was one of the things I found the hardest. And yeah, sometimes I think it is the more practical assessment things that I would get more stressed or worried about, because for me a test is, I don't know, for me I don't really mind them. I think it's maybe because I've just done so many, so I'm quite used to them. But this sort of interview, it's not something I've done before, at least that specifically. I always find it kind of awkward to talk sometimes. But yeah, it's something you gotta learn from, and it was an experience, and the only way you can get better is through practice. I guess the last thing is I want to just talk about a few things that I felt like I really learnt from this year, and I'm not really gonna mention like the sciencey stuff, because obviously you learn a lot of content on that, but I think I got some life lessons and stuff from this year. Because I do think this year was very different to my first year of university, and I think it helped me to, recognize more about myself and all that. As someone who did biomed in first year and, just going into second year, the cohort itself was just so much smaller than the previous year. You're going from around thousands of students to just under 300. And don't get me wrong, just under 300 is still a lot of students, but in comparison, it is smaller. So you really come to meet new people and recognize faces, which I think is really cool, because last year, I just really stuck to my same bubble of people, and like, you just couldn't meet anyone in lectures, while now, like, you probably can, because, let's be honest, how many people are even going to lectures? So it's already, like, a smaller group than the 300. And the thing is, it's not just people from biomed and health sci, but it's also postgrads and other international students. So, med school brings a lot of different people to Auckland, and, I always find it interesting when I'm talking to my friends or other people in my class, and it's like, oh, I still feel like a kid, like, who just left high school, while all these other people have, they're in their mid-20s, or, like, they have families, and maybe they were working beforehand before they decide to do this. Yeah, so it's a really big mix of people, and that's, I think, one of the cool things. And I guess it's happening anytime when you enter the real world, is like, you're not just going to interact with people that are just your age. You're going to meet other people who aren't just straight up high school leavers, that they've done other things, or, they've got other jobs or commitments that they're also doing. So it's really interesting to hear their perspective on things, and it's been really cool to get to know such a range of people. And kind of along with that topic is there are quite a few postgrads, I think more than quite a few, and a lot of them are from Otago, which I was not expecting. So I don't know if I have anyone here that's watching who's a Otago student, but maybe you'll come up here in the future. I think one of the big things that I also learned this year was being average is, like, fine. And I don't know, I think that it is kind of a weird thing to say, but like most people who decide that, medicine or any of the clinical programs are for them, regardless of undergrad or postgrad, a major part of the entry requirements looks at your grades. And so grades have always been, for me, quite like a big part of what I'm aiming at, or my end goal. Also with the fact in the last year you've got thousands of people, all with different capabilities and different kind of goals of where they want to go. So the people in your cohort also worked really hard, and they study a lot, and they're trying to do well as well. So I think it was kind of interesting coming into second year and getting results back and seeing that this is gonna sound really bad, but, like, it's a true feeling, okay? Like, where you are compared to the rest of the classes, you're not in the top 25% or whatever. Now you're just in the middle. And yeah, I know, like, for a lot of people, getting good grades isn't necessarily your top priority. And, like, I know not just me, but other people as well, it's like, when grades have been such a big part of your life, it's really weird sensation almost to see that you're not necessarily in the top whatever percentage anymore, because everyone in your class is doing well. And I think that's one of the big things I learned, is, like, that's totally fine. Being average isn't a bad thing. And really, you're still doing really well. I think for me, like, throughout high school and I guess last year and a bit of this year, I've always been someone who enjoys, I guess, studying or doing well in that sort of area. For me, it was almost a part of my identity. And I think for me, what happened this year is I had to learn that while grades, it is good to pass, and obviously you want to do well for your own development, but it's more than that, and it's like, you shouldn't be comparing yourself to other people in a way that it becomes unhealthy. Yeah, and I don't know, I just think this year I really start to focus on also diversifying my interests and stuff. Like, even though, okay, to be fair, I often say in these videos that I either study or I sleep. I mean, that is kind of true, but outside of it, in high school, I still had time to do my other hobbies, and I really tried to kind of not only bring that back this year, but also just get more involved in other things that I might have not done before. So halfway through the year, I started volunteering at the hospital as well, and I just tried to, just implement other activities into my life outside of studying, because I think it was really important for me to see that as a person. There's more to me just than the grades, and like in the end that one grade doesn't really matter. You know, it only matters up to that point in time, and then once you get the grade you're like, okay, and you move on to the next and you kind of forget about whatever just happened. But it's like, you know, the cumulative things you learn, not just through this, but through life experiences and ways to de-stress and stuff. I think these are the kind of areas that I was trying to, I don't know, just work on. And I mean, I'm still working on it, but thinking of where I am now, compared to the beginning of this year, you know, I'd like to think I've made some progress. I guess one more thing of something I've learnt this year, or just something I found really cool, was again seeing the stuff that I'd learnt. Not only, I guess it's kind of linking back to what I said earlier about cardio and digestive, but just seeing how the stuff you've learnt is relevant to things in your life. It's not only in your own experiences, but also maybe in your friends and family's lives. You know, having friends and stuff who have certain things happen, and then you can kind of chip in being like, oh, it's that muscle you tore or something. Or as well as, you know, when you see these interesting health topics that pop up in the news now, I feel like I can actually have an opinion now because I kind of have a vague understanding of maybe how that system works, or, you know, the doctor's perspective, or even the patient's perspective. That's actually something else I want to quickly chuck in here. Is like something that was really cool with quite a few of our modules. One of the final lectures would be with a patient that had maybe some sort of condition which was relevant to that module. So for example, for digestive, there was a lady who came in to talk to us about her celiac disease. For respiratory, we had a guy who had COPD, and cardio, someone with a heart transplant. And so it was really nice to hear these patients' stories and, you know, their perspective on things, and how they found out they had these issues or whatever, and how they went through the medical system to get through it, or like how they are still dealing with it now. And I think that really brings back that personal connection to, you know, why we're doing these things in the first place. You know, when you always sit in front of the lecture and you just get this straight up talk of like how it works and stuff, but the thing is, it's different for every person. So just hearing these patient stories was just, you know, it just made you feel good, like, yes, this is why I'm here to study, is because, you know, one day I will be able to be in a position where I can help other people who are going through these things, and, you know, while I can see the relevant and stuff. So and I think that's just cool. Yeah, I mean, overall, I think it was a good year, and it's great to have a break now. This is, I guess, like our last long summer break, because when you go between third and fourth year, your break's a lot shorter, because fourth year is your first clinical year, and so you start at the hospitals earlier. So I'm trying to make the most of this break, and like I said, you know, get into those other hobbies and things of mine. Overall, I think it was a good year. I really did enjoy it. I think I liked this year a lot more than last year. I think, again, it's putting more time into things outside of my uni work as well. That was what I really enjoyed. Yeah, so, I mean, if you guys have any questions about my thoughts on second year, I'd be more than happy to answer any questions, maybe in the comments below. Sometimes I think I'm better at writing answers than saying them. So, yeah. I hope you guys all have a great summer break, and otherwise, I will see you in my next video.